Hey, man. It's David Crosby, man. Can tell I mean business because I'm making this mean face and I'm holding this shotgun and we got this dog over here, man, and this dude's holding the bullets over here, man. We're Crosby Stills, man. You can't fuck with us, man. We're warning you, you come any closer, man, we're gonna warn you again. Don't fuck with us. It's Crosby, Stills, and Nash, Deja Vu. And this is the Shem Depends Record Reviews for the Keystone Statement. Yeah, this week we're going to start with this classic. Which I say that I'm not the biggest Crosby, Stills, and Nash fan. And I'd probably say that they were never more relevant than this album, Deja Vu. And they were never really relevant again. This was pretty much where they peaked and where they ended. And I can explain what I mean by that. But we know Crosby, Stills, and Nash, I mean vocal harmonies, these guys, the sweet sound, the way these guys sang. You know, it's not a hot take to say these guys could sing. But it's really something special. Their harmonies, and the sort of, it's interesting, I think they sort of came from the early 60s, whatever, the Temptations or some of the doo-wop groups, you don't have groups now where kids are not learning to harmonize. It's not a thing now, which, thank God, it's not really. I'm not a fan of that, but it's interesting, that's where they came from, where they kind of perfected it and brought it to hippie rock vibe, and it gives the music a sort of a sort of an extra little dreamy, sort of psychedelic folk type sound. Speaking of, you got Treat Your Children on this album with Jerry Garcia on the pedal steel guitar. You can't have enough Jerry Garcia in your life. The cosmos will smile down on you and your spirit when you listen to Jerry, so that's a good song for your spirit. We got Woodstock on this album, the Joni Mitchell song, and I always thought that song was saying we are stardust and we got to get back to the car. I would think that's probably the biggest thing about Woodstock is after it's over, you walk back to the car, and you probably say, where do we park? I don't know, somewhere in Binghamton? Who knows, But no, let's get back to the garden. I don't like that as much. You got, of course, Neil Young is in this too. And Neil Young was sort of, was just kind of an extra guy in Crosby, Stills. And I don't say that as a criticism of him. I love Neil Young, and I think he's remained way more relevant without these guys. But he just was there to sort of add a couple of tunes every album or, every so often. And here he's got Helpless, which is a great song. Great version from the Last Waltz a couple years later, the band documentary directed by Martin Scorsese. But still, I can't help but feel like this is sort of it's hippie try hard music a little bit. There's a song, Almost Cut My Hair, which really annoyed me. Of course it's David Crosby. I'm sorry, but that's not like, you're not being rebellious, man. You're not sticking it to the man because you don't cut your hair, And you don't write a song about it. I almost bought a Danish the other day. I didn't write a song about it, David. So it's shit like that kind of keeps them stuck in their time. So if you want like a little time capsule of the 60s and what was speaking to people back then, and plus some great vocal harmonies, yeah, it's a good album. Is it going to be super relevant to your life? Nah, I don't think so. Outside of Jerry's guitar, which is always relevant. What's up next? Camp Low. Now, I love Camp Low. This is a New York hip-hop duo who their first album came out in 97 called Uptown Saturday Night. This is a single from, I think, 2002 or 2001, and this is not available on any albums or CDs. It's kind of a cool single to have. But, you know, these guys really created a cool sound because this was sort of like mid-90s New York crime rap, and even now in rap, everybody's trying to top each other, who's tougher and who's harder and who brings in more keys and etc., etc. And these guys did that as sort of drug pimp rap, but it was through sort of like a 70s blaxploitation kind of thing, like where it's a movie, it's entertainment, you know, and it was, you know, Cleopatra Jones and, you know, Heron in 73 type thing. You know, these guys were smooth, they're hip, and it's entertaining. And they're creatively and lyrically, these guys are both pretty cool, the way they put their rhymes together. And I'd say it's an influential, Uptown Saturday is an influential album, the one that came before this, produced by Ski Beats, who did a lot of work for Jay-Z, early Jay-Z, especially Reasonable Doubt, which it's been said that there was a couple of beats meant for Camp Lo that Jay-Z took, even that the song Feelin' It, which if you know that from Reasonable Doubt was originally a Camp Lo song. And it's an example of Jay-Z has spent his whole career seeing what's relevant, what's going on in the culture, and taking pieces of it for his own music, to keep his own music relevant, which is not a criticism. It's Jay-Z's super talented and has been successful by doing that, by recognizing what's new and what's not repeating himself, etc., etc. I'd say Reasonable Doubt is a better album than anything Camp Lo's ever done, but Camp Lo had an influence, I think, on early Jay-Z, and they stand on their own. Problem is, Trouble Man is just, this was not a really good single as like a follow-up. And when you're doing a single, when you have a a non-album single that we're supposed to buy and get into, I'll tell you, both songs, and especially at least one song, better really be popping. And neither of these really are too much. They're both kind of like, you know, they're sort of like, if you know Camp Lo, this is just sort of Camp Lo by the numbers. And it's too bad, because I think you might look at this single as may have messed up their momentum, I think you might even say. You know, they could have, maybe they were going to be bigger, and maybe a lot of people, like me, I'll admit, I heard this and said, okay, I had enough of Camp Lo. You know. And it's too bad, because later in their career, they put out some cool albums. They put out some mixtapes with Pete Rock. Took some old Pete Rock and CL Smooth beats and some Pete Rock beats. These guys sound great on the Pete Rock or Ski Beats style of beats, which means smooth soul samples. Kind of, they were good with hooks. And Camp Lo, if you like sort of that 90s druggy pimp but still artistically adventurous, creative hip-hop, you're not going to go wrong with Camp Lo. And even Trouble Man's okay, but this was not a high point of their career. And finally, speaking of not a high point, this is Paul Simon, still crazy after all these years. Paul Simon really makes me want to vomit. I find him a vomitous human being. You know, I know that he wrote some great tunes with Simon and Garfunkel and yada yada and all that, but by now, this is 1975. He stinks so bad on this album. This is such a fucking bad album for so many reasons, and it makes me mad. Everything about this album makes me mad. You know, it's got two songs that people know, Still Crazy After All These Years, and 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. You probably know those. You don't know the other ones. You don't want to know the other ones. I listened to this whole album and really got angry. I'm not an angry person. This album made me angry. You know, it's like light jazz, pop, folk, singer-songwriters, 70s pampered artists, Coke Spoon, vapid whores, bad pseudo poetry, David Sanborn's saxophone. I don't know. I mean, and not all those things are necessarily bad. I could say, Coke Spoon, vapid whore doesn't mean that the music's going to be bad. This is just bad music. I just tried to describe some of the vibes of it. But I mean, yesterday it was my birthday. I hung one more year on the line. I should be depressed. My life's a mess, but I'm having a good time. I've been loving and loving and loving and loving. I'm exhausted from loving so well. Oh, really, are you? I should go to bed, but a voice in my head says, what the hell? Right, so a man got paid money and had the audacity to charge people money for that, for those lyrics. And the music is worse. The music is so bad. Everything about this. We were married on a rainy day. The sky was yellow and the grass was gray. Okay. We signed the papers. We drove away. I do it for your love. It's just so bad. And additionally, later on, Paul Simon, I think he would have been forgotten. He sort of had that comeback in the 80s where he ripped off the African musicians. Then I think the band Los Lobos claimed that he ripped them off. So he sort of had a shtick where he'd go in the studio, bring in good musicians, and say, hey, you guys jam. And then, like, a year later, it would come out on an album, all songs by Paul Simon. And they'd go, no, dude. So, I have to say I give this album a 1. You're number 1, Paul Simon. This is Shem the Pen for the Record Reviews Keystone Statement. One more time. Look at that schmuck.